Hello everyone, it's Christine here and I am back to share a Stitchery swap square that I have created for the lovely Schrell. So Schrell was really keen to swap with me as part of the first round of the Stitchery swaps, but I had taken on so many at that stage that I couldn't take on any more, but I am delighted to have created a square for Schrell as part of the second round, the swaps that have started in November. So you'll be watching this video once Schrell has actually received her square, but I'm recording it obviously before I send it off to her. And I thought I would give you a warts and all look at how my workspace often looks after I have finished stitching a project. And so this particular piece that I worked on was inspired by some of the favourite things that Schrell told me she really likes, which is vintage and antique laces, pink, and flowers and the countryside. So I've had a lovely time pulling out a whole lot of vintage laces out of my collection. Some of them might be antique as well, although I think most of them are machine-made laces as opposed to handmade laces. And then I've had fun deconstructing them to get sort of particular elements that I could use to frame this particular piece. I've also used a base fabric for my little flower scene in the middle, but as you can see, the base fabric had a very almost like a watercolor sort of design on it, so they were quite non-distinct flowers. And as you can see, I've had a really lovely time stitching into the fabric and adding lines, mostly doing little V's where I would anchor down the bottom of the V sort of shape with a little stitch and using that to create little curves as well. But it's just created the most delightful sort of multi-dimensional. I think it's really added quite a lot that you just don't get in the base piece of fabric, which would have gone up, yeah. So you can actually see the two of them together. And just see how much it has sort of, yeah, brought dimension to them, almost like the flowers are popping out from the design. So really happy with that. And I did that using a variety of threads, a vintage one that I got recently from the Sewing Lair, as well as this nice variegated pink from Aurifil. Oops, just went rolling down. I think it fell into my rubbish bin. I'll have to retrieve the pink thread out of the rubbish bin in a moment. And then another old, just a regular pink sewing thread. For the yellow of the yellow rose, I used this lovely variegated thread from Aurifil. So yeah, 100% cotton, NE28. Oh, they're all NE28, so that's not the colour on them. That must be the colour down the bottom. So the yellow is 4658 and this is 3660. So that's what I used for doing the roses, and did some French knots in the centre as well, and then added some little flower, little French knots as little flowers on the stems and leaves, which I created just with this vintage green thread. So just added some little yellow and pink little buds around, just to add some sort of, I guess, yeah, dimension as well to those. Used a vintage Suffolk puff from these ones I've got from the lovely Melanie, purveyor of Reclaimed Textiles. And what I did with this one, and I'll show you actually how I did it. I'll just remove one off here with my scissors, if I can find where my little scissors are hiding. If not, I'll hopefully have a pair up here. I do. I'll just detach one of them from here, cut the threads. So these would have been part of probably a quilt made out of these vintage Suffolk puffs. So it's lovely, yeah, old vintage fabric. Just get this one detached. It's been very well attached together. It's quite a strong thread that holds the pieces together. So I've detached this one off. So I'll get rid of the little stringy bits off it. And what I did to reduce some of the bulk was I actually cut around the outside of it. So I'll use my good fabric scissors. And what I did was just went around the outside it also made it a little bit more petite, which was good because I just wanted something a little bit smaller. And then what you'll be left with is 2 pieces. So you could either use this piece separately, or you can do like I did here, use the bottom piece as a little base, but you can then trim this down even further so it becomes a smaller little centerpiece. And so you still keep all that lovely gathering, but you get a nice little center one that can almost sit on the outer one like a little flower. So I'll keep that for another day and another project. And then I just stitched a little button, a little flower button into the center, and I also did just some nice little decorative radiating stitches coming out over the base piece. As I mentioned, I kind of deconstructed my laces to make each of the elements, so whether I was using a bottom section of the lace or a little side section of lace. In this piece I underlaid one of those pieces of lace underneath. I think it was this little edgy piece there, so that sits under the fabric, and then there's this one over here. In fact, this one might be this one. And then I used this particular lace, which I've got a bunch of it, and I used that to create my heart shape. And I also incorporated one of my fabric hearts in the piece as well, and found that when I cut this one, when I cut the lace down to be a heart, it is a perfect little pocket for my heart shape, like that. So for my heart shape, you may have seen this. Yeah, you probably, when you're watching this video, you will have seen another video where I made a heart similar to this using a perle thread to stitch all around with an overstitch, and then on the back I've used this same fabric and just used an offcut of that same fabric and added some of my French laundry labels to say love CO, my initials. So sending the love out into the world. And so that pocket is just stitched at the very edge of it, but open at the top, and it means you can still see all the lovely laces underneath as well. And it means that Schrell will be able to either leave the heart in here on display, or even if she takes it out, it's still a lovely lace piece, and then she can hang this particular little heart up somewhere decoratively if that is what she would like to do. So I thought that was a nice little element. I like to have secret pockets in my work, but I'll bring it up and give you a bit of a closer look. I also did some French knots along here. I love that they almost feel like beading down here. I did some other French knots in the brighter pink, sort of randomly coming up here. I've added little seed beads. I think they were these ones here, glass seed beads, product of Japan. Again, they're from my vintage stash, and I just did them around this little cluster here and used a little crystal. This is like a crystal pink that I put some stitches over. Originally it came from a necklace that was all just deconstructed down. I think it was an op-shop necklace. And so I've got lots of lovely, little crystal sort of beads and things that I just keep in a jar. Also used, as I mentioned, buttons. So I keep lots of lovely small buttons sorted by colour. So the beads are there, and then I've also cascaded some of those same beads coming down from the heart. So just like they're sort of scattering down. What else have I done? I've then just stitched the background sort of all stitched down, plus all the detailed stitching I did to create the flower effects. And yeah, as I say, this stitching that I did on the flowers, I was really just popping up and then creating an anchored down V shape. So almost like I think a fishbone stitch would be, but almost just like a detached fishbone. So just putting a shape in and then anchoring the bottom of it down to create a V. And that's what I used for most of the rose shapes. And then some little, French knots in the centers. And that's the piece. I think the sun is streaming in, so hopefully it's not going to affect the video too much. But I thought you might like to see that. Thought you might like to see the craziness that is my desk when I create. And And yeah, it's been just an absolute joy to create this little piece. I wasn't quite sure how it was all going to come together. I wasn't originally necessarily planning on doing this detailed stitching in, but once I started it, I really liked it, and it was just, yeah, really lovely to bring some real definition, I think, to the little scene. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for future little Stitchery swap squares and other creations. And take care. I hope you're having a fun day creating yourself. Bye everyone.